Treated as solved, closed, forgotten. That's how the public came to know the Charlie Kirk shooting, a tragedy pinned on a single man, explained away within hours. But what if that story was never the truth? Tonight, newly released footage forces us to confront a chilling possibility that the wrong person was accused and the real shooter is still out there. If justice is built on facts, what happens when the facts don't match the story we were told? And how many lives have been broken by a narrative that may collapse under the weight of new evidence? This is not just another true crime story. This is a story about trust, about hidden truths, and about a community desperate for answers. Before we dive into the details, take a moment to support this investigation. Like this video, share it with others who need to know the truth, and subscribe to this channel for ongoing coverage. And let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and do you believe the full truth about Charlie Kirk's case has been revealed? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear changes everything. Charlie Kirk was not just a name in the headlines. To his supporters, he was a voice, bold, determined, unrelenting. To his family, he was a son, a brother, a man with laughter that filled a room and dreams that stretched far beyond politics. He was someone who believed he could make a difference, and whether you agreed with him or not, he left an undeniable mark on the communities he touched. September 10th, 2025 began like any ordinary day at Utah Valley University. Students hurried between classes, friends lounged on the quad talking about exams, weekend plans, and the future. Parents arrived with their children to hear Charlie speak. For many, it was supposed to be just another stop on his nationwide tour, a chance to hear, debate, and engage. But as the sun dipped and the auditorium filled, the atmosphere shifted. Anticipation buzzed in the air as Charlie took the stage, his voice echoing across the packed room. For 30 minutes, he delivered his message with his signature energy, his gestures commanding the crowd. Then at precisely 7:14 p.m., the unthinkable happened. A single sharp crack cut through the air. At first, many thought it was feedback from the microphone, a technical glitch. But within seconds, panic rippled through the audience. Charlie stumbled, then collapsed to the floor. Screams erupted, students ducked beneath seats, parents shielded their children, security rushed to the stage as chaos unfolded in what should have been a safe space. Emergency responders battled against time to save him, but despite their desperate efforts, the night ended in heartbreak. Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead. In an instant, a leader was gone, a family shattered, a community scarred, and a nation left reeling. Within hours of the shooting, authorities were quick to reassure the public. The story was simple. They said a lone gunman had slipped into the auditorium, hidden among the crowd, and at the height of Charlie Kirk's speech, fired a single fatal shot. The suspect, identified as Tyler Robinson, a 24-year-old with no prior criminal record, was taken into custody just blocks from the campus. Police claimed he matched eyewitness descriptions, a young man in a black hoodie carrying a backpack seen fleeing the scene. Investigators told the press they had found a handgun in his possession. Ballistics, they promised, would prove it was the same weapon used in the attack. Motive: political anger. Online posts allegedly tied Robinson to extremist groups, hinting at his disdain for Kirk's message and his movement. For the public, it was a story that felt neat, almost too neat, a dangerous man, a tragic outcome. Justice, it seemed, was on its way. News outlets across the country echoed the same line. The shooter had been caught, the community could breathe again, and the case, though tragic, was closed. But beneath the headlines, doubts were already beginning to surface. Witnesses whispered about details that didn't match. The timeline seemed off, and for those who looked closely, the open and shut case began to look anything but. It didn't take long before the cracks began to show. First, the timeline. According to the official report, Tyler Robinson was seen leaving the auditorium moments after the fatal shot, but surveillance footage from a nearby hallway showed him entering a restroom just 3 minutes before the shooting occurred and not emerging until several minutes after. If Robinson was inside, how could he have pulled the trigger? Then came the ballistics report. Forensics suggested the bullet recovered from the victim's body was fired from a different caliber weapon than the one police claimed to have found on Robinson. At first, officials dismissed it as a clerical error, but the discrepancy remained. Eyewitnesses also raised doubts. Several attendees insisted the shooter had been standing much closer to the stage within the first few rows, not by the side exit where Robinson was supposedly spotted. One student described seeing a figure in a red cap rushing out in the chaos, a detail never mentioned in the official account. Even the digital evidence seemed murky. The social media posts prosecutors tied to Robinson were traced to accounts using encrypted networks and inconsistent IP addresses. Cybersecurity experts pointed out that this suggested manipulation or even framing. Bit by bit, the polished narrative unraveled. The more people looked, the more it seemed like Robinson wasn't the lone figure authorities portrayed, if he was involved at all. And then, just as the doubts reached a boiling point, a new piece of evidence surfaced, footage that would shake the entire case. The turning point came when previously unreleased footage surfaced. Captured by a student on their phone, the video offered a chilling new perspective of the auditorium at the exact moment the shot was fired. In the chaos, you can clearly see Tyler Robinson seated halfway down the aisle, his head ducked, arms covering his face as the crowd panicked. But more importantly, just seconds earlier, the lens catches a figure near the stage, partially obscured, lifting what appears to be a small handgun. The shot rings out, the figure darts away. This was not the story authorities told, and it wasn't the only contradiction. Multiple witnesses came forward. One faculty member claimed she saw two individuals rushing out separate exits simultaneously, one in dark clothing, the other in a red cap. Another student swore they heard two distinct gunshots, not one, though the official report insists only a single round was fired. Experts added their voices. A former federal investigator reviewing the footage frame by frame noted that the shooter's build did not match Robinson's profile. The stance, the arm length, even the stride, all inconsistent. We may be looking at another person entirely, he warned. Suddenly, what had seemed like an open and shut case exploded into a swirl of uncertainty. Was Robinson framed? Was there a second shooter? And if so, why had authorities been so quick to bury these details? The alternative accounts painted a darker, more complicated picture, one where the truth may have been obscured intentionally or otherwise. And at the center of it all was Tyler Robinson, a young man the world now saw as a monster, but whose story was beginning to look very different. For weeks, the public only knew one version of Tyler Robinson, the mugshot, the face of a supposed extremist, the lone gunman who silenced a voice on stage. But away from the flashing cameras and bold headlines, a different portrait began to emerge. Tyler was just 24, a college graduate known by friends as quiet, reserved, and intensely private. He had no prior arrests, no record of violence, and no known ties to radical groups. He worked part-time in IT support, lived with a roommate, and was saving for graduate school. Neighbors described him as polite, though distant, a young man who often kept to himself but never once caused trouble. His family painted a picture of someone shy, even introverted, not the radical figure prosecutors presented. On social media, the supposed evidence tying him to extremist ideology began to unravel. Digital forensic experts pointed out the inconsistencies, accounts created only months before the shooting, unusual posting times, and activity that didn't align with Robinson's daily life. It looked staged, one analyst commented. But perhaps most haunting was the weight of perception. Once his name was announced, Robinson's life collapsed in hours. Online, he was vilified. Comment sections branded him a murderer, a terrorist, a symbol of hate. Strangers issued threats. His family faced harassment. The court of public opinion had already convicted him long before the truth was fully revealed. Which raised a sobering question: had Tyler Robinson become a scapegoat, a face to plaster over the deeper truth? As cracks widened, the spotlight shifted away from Robinson and toward the unanswered questions of who really fired the shot and why. While investigators debated timelines and evidence, one truth remained undeniable: a life had been lost and a community was shattered. Charlie Kirk supporters gathered in vigils across the state. Flowers, handwritten notes, and candles lined the steps of the very auditorium where the shooting had occurred. For many, the event was more than just a tragedy. It was an attack on free speech, on public discourse, on the sense of safety in gathering spaces. The grief was raw. Families who had attended the event with their children spoke of sleepless nights, of nightmares replaying the sound of that single gunshot. Survivors described the panic, the stampede, the desperate scramble for safety. The trauma rippled far beyond those who were in the room. And then there was Tyler Robinson's family. While one side mourned a victim, the other lived under a cloud of suspicion. They grieved differently, not for a death, but for a life derailed, a son, a brother whose name had become synonymous with violence. His parents pleaded for fairness, for patience, for the truth to come out. But the greatest wound may have been to public trust. The contradictions, the rushed arrests, the suppression of footage, all of it left the community questioning whether justice was truly being served. Was the system seeking truth or simply closure? The tragedy no longer belonged to just one family or one courtroom. It had become a mirror reflecting the fears, the divisions, and the deep unease of a society caught between grief and suspicion. And yet, as painful as the ripple effects were, they opened the door to a larger question, one that stretched beyond the individuals involved. The shooting of Charlie Kirk and the controversy surrounding Tyler Robinson is not just about one night or one investigation. It has become a symbol of something larger, the fragility of trust in the systems meant to protect us. When official stories are contradicted by evidence, when timelines shift and key documents disappear, the public is forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. How much of what we are told can truly be trusted? This is not the first time. Across history, high-profile crimes have been rushed to judgment. A suspect presented, a case closed, while questions linger in the shadows. But with the rise of digital media, every inconsistency is magnified, every gap in transparency sparks speculation, and every unanswered question feeds conspiracy. The divisions in our society only widen to some. This is proof of government overreach, of institutions silencing inconvenient truths. To others, it is an example of reckless misinformation spreading faster than facts. And caught in the middle are the families grieving, searching, hoping for clarity that may never come. But perhaps the biggest question is this: what does justice mean when truth itself is contested? Is it a guilty verdict? Is it closure for the family? Or is it the relentless pursuit of every hidden detail, no matter how uncomfortable it may be? This case forces us to look beyond the crime scene and ask about transparency, accountability, and the role of media in shaping our perception of justice. Because if narratives can be crafted, if evidence can be buried, and if truth can be delayed, then how safe is any of us from being misled? And that is the bigger picture this case leaves behind. The shooting that took Charlie Kirk's life may seem like a case with answers already delivered, a tragedy with a suspect already behind bars. But the evidence tells a different story, one full of contradictions, unanswered questions, and haunting possibilities. So we ask you, is justice truly being served, or is the truth still out there hidden in plain sight? For Charlie's family, for Tyler Robinson, and for every member of the community affected, the answers matter. And for all of us watching, it is a stark reminder that every detail matters in the pursuit of justice. This case may not be over. In fact, it may only just be beginning. If you believe in uncovering the full truth, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this story. Comment below where you're watching from and let us know. Do you think the official story adds up, or is there more we're not being told? Stay with us, because the search for answers is far from over.